7 brain shortcuts that secretly control your decisions. You like to think your choices are completely logical. You compare options, weigh the facts, and make the smartest decision. But your brain is not a spreadsheet. It is a shortcut machine. Every day, it uses mental shortcuts to save energy, move fast, and protect you from overload. Most of the time, that is useful. But sometimes, those same shortcuts quietly steer what you buy, who you trust, what you remember, and what you believe. Shortcut number 1 is anchoring. Your brain grabs the first number it sees and treats it like a reference point, even when that number is random. If a jacket is shown at $200 and then marked down to 80, 80 feels like a deal. But if you saw the same jacket first at 80, you might call it expensive. The first number did not give you truth. It gave your brain a starting line. That is why menus, salary negotiations, discount tags, and even casual guesses can change what feels reasonable. Shortcut number 2 is loss aversion. Losing something usually feels stronger than gaining the same thing feels good. Finding $20 is nice. Losing $20 can bother you all day. This shortcut helped humans avoid danger, but today it shows up everywhere. People keep subscriptions they barely use because canceling feels like losing access. They hold on to bad purchases because admitting the money is gone feels painful. They stay with the familiar because the possible loss feels louder than the possible win. Shortcut number 3 is the mere exposure effect. The more often you see something, the more familiar it feels. And the more familiar it feels, the more your brain tends to trust it. A song you disliked at first becomes catchy after a few listens. A face you see repeatedly starts to feel friendly. A phrase you hear again and again begins to sound true. Familiarity is not proof, but your brain often treats it like safety. Shortcut number 4 is the availability bias. Your brain estimates how common something is by how easily examples come to mind. If you recently heard about a plane delay, flying can feel riskier. If everyone around you is talking about a new trend, it can feel like the whole world is doing it. The problem is that memorable examples are not always typical examples. Loud stories are easier to remember than boring statistics, so your brain can mistake vivid for likely. Shortcut number 5 is confirmation bias. Once you lean toward an idea, your brain starts acting like a lawyer for that idea. It notices supporting evidence, questions opposing evidence, and remembers the parts that make you feel right. This is why two people can look at the same situation and walk away more convinced of opposite conclusions. The shortcut feels like confidence from the inside, but often it is just selective attention wearing a suit. Shortcut number 6 is the halo effect. One strong positive trait can make everything else look better. If someone is charming, attractive, confident, or well-spoken, you may assume they are also smarter, kinder, or more trustworthy. The reverse can happen too. One awkward moment can unfairly color the whole person. The halo effect is powerful because it does not feel like a shortcut. It feels like intuition. Shortcut number 7 is the framing effect. The same fact can change your decision depending on how it is presented. A product that says 90% fat-free feels different from one that says 10% fat. A plan that has a 90% success rate feels different from one with a 10% failure rate. The information is the same, but the emotional doorway is different. Your brain reacts not only to facts, but to the frame around the facts. Here is the useful part. These shortcuts are not flaws that make you broken. They are normal features of a brain trying to move through a complicated world without freezing on every choice. The danger is pretending they are not there. When you notice the anchor, you can ask what the number would mean without the first price. When you feel a loss too strongly, you can ask whether you are protecting your future or just defending the past. When something feels true because it is familiar, you can ask where the evidence actually is. The smartest people are not the ones with no biases. They are the ones who know when their brain is taking a shortcut. So the next time a decision feels obvious, pause for 5 seconds. Ask yourself, what did I see first? What am I afraid to lose? And what frame is shaping this choice? That tiny pause will not make you perfect, but it can stop a shortcut from secretly driving the whole decision. Before you go, there is one more pattern that makes all of these shortcuts easier to spot. Most bad decisions do not feel bad in the moment. They feel easy. They feel familiar. They feel urgent. That is the warning sign. If a choice feels urgent, check for loss aversion. Are you actually getting value, or are you just afraid the chance will disappear? If a choice feels obvious, check for anchoring and framing. Did the first number, first opinion, or first label quietly set the limits of your thinking? If a choice feels comfortable, check for mere exposure. Do you trust it because it earned trust, or because you have simply seen it many times? And if a choice feels socially safe, check for social proof. Other people may be right, but a crowd is not the same thing as evidence. A useful rule is to pause before any decision that is expensive, emotional, public, or hard to reverse. You do not need a complicated system. Just ask 4 questions. What was my first anchor? What am I afraid to lose? What frame am I being shown? And what would I think if nobody else had an opinion? That pause is small, but it changes the game. Your brain can still use shortcuts. You just stop letting them operate in secret.